Now, oligopoly is also a kind of market structure with the large number of firms, and it's a form of a bigger structure of duopoly. The most interesting part of the oligopoly is that the profits do not go outside the cartel. It is very much shared within the cartel. Purely out of the trust and the building in terms of understanding each other, oligopoly can get even more stronger in nation. Good morning and welcome to the third session in Business Decision Theory, where we are going to talk about the market structure, the third part of it, the oligopoly. In the previous session, we had spoken about duopoly. In this session, we are going to speak about oligopoly. Now, oligopoly is also a kind of market structure with the large number of firms, and it's a form of a bigger structure of duopoly. So now what happens here is that oligopoly is the extended version of duopoly. So that's why I use this figure here and I say that this is the extended version. So now what happens here is that with the extended version of duopoly, what you would be seeing here is that it is a kind of market where a group of companies join hands together and they dominate the entire market. The second thing here is that the concentration ratio measures the market size of the largest firms. Monopoly is only one firm, duopoly is two firms, whereas oligopoly is many firms put together. So what happens here is that there is no precise upper limit to the number of firms in the market, in the oligopoly market, and this would be something which is like a cartel, and this is not something where it can go below 3, because once it becomes 2 it becomes a duopoly. So below 3 you cannot have this. It will have 3 and above people who significantly influence the others. Now, since this is an extension of duopoly market, oligopoly is one where you have the small number of firms that collude here in terms of either explicitly, they try to dominate the market, they try to put factors around, and because it's an extended version of duopoly, what we try to do here is that they follow the same kind of pattern. They fix the output and the prices in order to achieve the above normal market returns. So in a normal condition, when you will be seeing that you can make only a stipulated amount of money as income or returns, whereas in an oligopoly form of market, because you know the extended version, that is, you know how much is the market value, you know how much is the returns altogether, so automatically what you tend to do is that you tend to make a very good above the market return. So you try to go above, you try to make more money altogether. The economic, legal and technological factors can contribute to the formation, maintenance or dissolution of the oligopolies. Now this is very, very important. Why? Because when we talk about the economic, legal, technological factors, they together contribute for the formation and maintenance, which means to say that these are the people who actually try to control the entire structure, because they have the power to control the economics factor. The legal barriers are not there much, and the technological factors also join hands to contribute the formation, maintenance and dissolution altogether. So what happens here? They again try to enclose the market, they try to hold the market as tight as possible, and they don't give an option to others in terms of reining the market. So this becomes a very, very tough market altogether. Now, this major difficulties that oligopolies face is the prisoner's dilemma, which we will be seeing that each member faces, which encourages each member to cheat. This is a very, very important concept in economics, which we are going to speak up in the terms of the upcoming slides. And the government policy can discourage or encourage oligopolistic behavior. Firms in mixed economies often seek government blessing to limit the competition. Now, when you look into the OPEC countries, like the Middle Eastern countries who are involved in the oil petroleum exporting zone, they have a blessing in disguise, what I would like to say, because the governments tend to support the oligopoly market. They don't want to give up the oligopoly, they don't want to give up the cartel base where they want to dominate the crude oil production, and they don't allow any other countries to become a part of it. Rather, they do not give the option for any other country to start the pricing or to fix the output altogether. But in most of the mixed economies, what happens, like in India, we don't allow the oligopoly to set all along, because we get in the government intervention completely, and we go about saying to people that, we don't want to continue with the oligopolistic nature. So now when we start moving further in terms of understanding the oligopoly, the history goes back to companies like the steel manufacturing companies, the oil companies, railroads, tire manufacturing, grocery store chains, and the wireless carriers. When you start looking into these industries in particular, you will be surprised to see the amount of oligopoly that they have carried forward. Why do I use this word oligopoly here? Is because they're all people who have governed a superstructure altogether. When you look into the steel manufacturing itself across the globe, there are a very, very few steel companies, definitely more than 3, when you start seeing that the steel companies join hand together and they increase the price of steel. Like this, when we talk about the metal companies in terms of zinc or in terms of copper or in terms of aluminium, what happens is that these companies tend to join hands together, increase the global output with a determined price so that they share the profit among themselves. The most interesting part of the oligopoly is that the profits do not go outside the cartel. It is very much shared within the cartel. So that becomes the most interesting part of the story. Followed by the economic and the legal concern is that oligopoly can block new entrants, slow innovation, and increase prices, which can harm consumers. Now, this is where you have to see that. When you start understanding, oligopoly will try to block the new people. It will definitely lessen the innovation and increase prices, which is definitely going to be harmful for the consumers. Like the extended duopoly, as I was trying to talk about, the oligopoly also forms the similar kind of characteristics because they don't allow people to come inside. They don't want fresh competition to be stepped inside. Automatically, the innovative part of the market gets completely destroyed, which means to say that the consumers are left with a very, very little choice altogether. They don't have much of an options where they can go and claim anything new for themselves. So what happens in the long run is that when you start seeing the oligopoly here, it will try to create an harmful situation for the consumers. The reason is that firms in the oligopoly set the prices because whether collectively or in a cartel or under a leadership altogether, rather than taking the market prices. So now what happens is that moment the cartel sets a price here, they say that this is the price of a particular thing. Let me say that I'm going to set $70 per barrel of oil. Then the market has to go with the cartel and the cartel will not go with the market. So now what happens here is that cartels decide the price. So there is no way where there would be an innovative open pricing strategy. Consumers have to take the price, retailers have to take the price because that's the only availability there. Followed by the other things here is that the profit margins are thus higher and they would be when compared to that of the competitive market. So these people would have already decided what would be the margins that they are going to make and the profit margin that you are going to derive in case of an oligopoly market will be definitely higher when compared to the normal competitive market. So that's very, very important for all of us in terms of doing it. Followed by the conditions that enable the oligopolies. Conditions that enable oligopolies to exist include the high entry cost in capital expenditures, legal privileges that we are talking about, and a platform that gains with more customers. So that's definitely going to be a very, very important picture. Followed by the global technology and trade transformation has also changed some of these conditions. That is, the offshore production and the rise of the mini mills have affected the steel industry. So now what is happening is that with technology coming into picture and trying to provide a sort of compensation where you are able to create a virtual companies or offshore companies, and what you are trying to do is that you are trying to disturb the entire cartel altogether. Now, because of this, the cartels are slowly getting depleted. Now, if you look here very, very clearly, what is happening is that with the help of social media, the people are able to directly interact with the producers and they are able to get a better pricing. Now, with the advent of Amazon and Flipkart, the e-commerce platform gaining more and more traction, what is happening here is that they are able to get a factor where they will be able to make a choice in terms of the prices. So it is no more that when I have a cartel and one price is fixed. If I go through the Amazon website or the Flipkart website and start seeing this factor that there is choice available for me, automatically the oligopoly goes off. So this is where we are trying to break the oligopoly. The next thing is that, now for example, when we look into the software application, Microsoft was actually targeted by the Google Docs, which Google funded using the cash from its web search business. Microsoft was once a very, very dominant person in terms of the office business, the office productivity. Even now, whenever we talk about the Word document, the PPTs and the Excel sheet or the Microsoft project, they hold a very, very dominant position. But with the advent of Google coming into picture and they started creating their own mini application, slowly that monopoly sector is now being broken. Now, I would not even only include Microsoft and Google. If you start going through the world of apps and software, there are many kinds of application today available which have the similar kind of functions. Now, when you start looking into WhatsApp, you have a similar kind of WhatsApp kind of images and the factors that are coming into picture, like the Telegram is there, the Koo app is there. All those kind of things are trying to create substitutes, which means they are breaking the barriers of the monopoly, duopolies and the oligopoly market. So no more there is going to be a monopoly that is going to be included in the long run. Followed by, why do you think that a monopoly or an oligopoly is exactly stable is because the interesting question that comes here is that the firms tend to see the benefit over collaboration of cost and competition. Now, automatically when you collaborate and when you have the power to share the resources by yourself and compete in a very, very focused manner with the price limitation being with you, then automatically you will be able to see that you are able to get a better benefit altogether. You are able to tell people very, very clearly that this will be of the next level altogether. Now, what is happening here is that instead of just looking into one person gaining, this is multiple people joining together and cooperating rather than competing. So what happens is that all of these people will share the resources and will create an entity by which the profits will also get restricted among themselves and they will make a profit maximization. The firms have also understood that there is a creative way to avoid the appearance of price fixing, such as using the phases of the moon that, every time, every 15 days, they tend to change the price and they bring in something new. Plus, the price fixing is an act of setting prices rather than just letting them to be determined by the free market forces. Another approach in the firms is to recognize the price leader. When the leader raises the price, the other will follow. So look at the pricing strategy. They have made it so clear that they don't want it to make it so apparent that I am the leader in terms of fixing of prices, but they follow certain strategy which makes it apparently believed to the customers that they are still holding the fort, and when the leader starts initiating, the others will simply follow the leaders and initiate the price structure. Now, let's talk about the prisoner's dilemma, which is one of the most important thing. The principal problem that these firms face in each way is that an incentive to cheat. Why they are cheating? Let's try to understand. If all firms in the oligopoly agree jointly to restrict the supply and keep the prices high, then each firm stands to capture substantial business from others by breaking the agreement, undercutting the others. So what happens here is that each of them will try to go against each other, where they say that we will hold the supply and keep the prices high. Such competition waged through prices or through simply individual company expanding its own output brought into the market. Now what happens here is that each one will try to compete against each other. They will try to hold the supply, they will try to restrict, by which what is going to happen, they will capture substantial business. So each one of the company will get its own part, own share of the market price, by which what will happen, there will be a substantial increase in the profit factor. So that's why this prisoner's dilemma is a very, very important factor. It is like, they get into a united segment, though each one of them are not really friends, but then they try to act as friends. They try to hold the entire market, restrict the output and increase the price, by which they capture a substantial factor or substantial figures in the market. The next thing is that game theories have agreed and developed these model scenarios which can form a sort of prisoner's dilemma when cost and benefits are balanced. That's the most important thing. Cost and benefit gets balanced so that no firm wants to break the group and it is considered to be in equilibrium. So now all of them are getting benefit by being a part of the group or being a member of that entire structure. So why should I go further and break the rules? I will tend to continue to be a part of the group, hold the equilibrium and continuing getting the profit. That's exactly what oligopoly tends to do in the long run. This can be achieved by contractual or the market condition, putting in the legal restriction, strategic relationship between the members because they like each other, they are good friends, they are neighboring countries, they understand, their policies are well matched, then automatically they get in hands together that enable them to create an oligopoly market. What are the special considerations that we need to look? One of the special consideration is that to note that both the problem of maintaining an oligopoly and the coordination action. Why? Because it is not going to be that easy for you to continue the coordination with all the members, because buyers and sellers in general on the market involved in shaping off the various payoff. What they try to do is that they try to break the relation. There is some time where there can be a lot of tiff between the neighboring nation. There can be a fight. Now recently, let me give you an example. The tussle between UAE and Saudi Arabia is creating a tension in the oil production, in the oil market altogether. So when you are a part of the oligopoly market, and if there is going to be a tension, if there's going to be a stifle, if there's going to be a problem, then automatically the market will get affected. What will happen is that this would be a chance for other people to break into the oligopoly. So that's very, very important that we need to understand here. As a result, the same institutional factors that facilitate the development of market economies by reducing that prisoner's dilemma, market participants, the enforcement of contracts and the cultural conditions of high trust, we see that the factors of oligopoly gets restricted here. And the most important thing is that there are many times where you will be able to see that oligopoly gets enhanced because of the trust and the relationship. This is like a special status. Why? Because Purely out of the trust and the building in terms of understanding each other, oligopoly can get even more stronger in nation. So oligopolies are like a very, very special kind of market when I try to conclude, because this kind of market does not exist in every corner of the globe. Not every country would like to get into an oligopoly or in a cartel, but once you have formed the cartel, you will try to hold the market for a lifelong time altogether. With this, I come to the end of the session. I hope and believe that all the information provided will be of a great help and resource to you. In the upcoming sessions, we shall learn more about the market condition, especially about the perfect market competition. But until then, stay tuned, stay blessed, and stay enlightened forever. Thank you once again for joining me today on this wonderful session today.